Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and today we're going to take another look at the M1 Garand. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, is this a sexy, sexy rifle? It really does live up to all of the hype. As you can see, I have since stained the stock with boiled linseed oil, and this thing, oh, it's even sexier than when I first got it. Now, today is primarily going to be focused on shooting and the shooting aspects of this rifle. I already went over a little bit of the history in the first shots video, and I'm going to go in depth into the history of this rifle in the full review. But until then, we're just going to look at it from a shooting perspective. This is the literal second time I've taken this rifle out, and that's mainly because I haven't been able to get to the rifle range since February, and since this was my first time back to the rifle range, this was the gun that came with me. The M1 Garand really is just a fun rifle to shoot. It might be a chunky boy, but it's a very well-balanced boy indeed, and these sights are nothing short of amazing. Really, within one range strip, I've gotten used to these bloody things, and now I'm just getting hit after hit after hit at the 100. And that is pretty good. Makes you feel good too. Now, of course, I'm not getting like 3 shots in a 1-inch group because I'm not quite that good just yet. But everything about this rifle is just fun. I mean, even loading the rifle, stuffing that clip in and having it pa-ching out, it's just great. Very few rifles have that sense of just fun. So with that, we're going to head out to the range. Now we're back at the 100-yard range. We're going to be shooting 56 rounds of PPU 30-06 optimized for M1 Garand, and we're going to be using 2 targets. One is a bullseye target that has a little shoot and see pasted over it. Then we're going to transition to a much more difficult target, and that's one of those MOA targets where you have to shoot at a little tiny thing to see what kind of grouping you get. We'll see how good I can do with the Garand. I think it's not going to be too difficult to get on target. As you can see, it wasn't that difficult to get on target. The bullseye target was the easiest to hit by far, just because it was much more visible. These are damn good sights. The one issue, though, that I found is the front sight is a little too thick to get really super precise shots, which makes sense because this is supposed to be a combat battle rifle, not a precision target rifle. But even with that thick front sight, I was still getting a few in the bull, which makes me very happy indeed. If I really wanted to tighten up my group, I could definitely swap this thing out for a national match front sight. But to be perfectly honest, I have no desire to do that because I was able to get good hits just with an unmodified stock Garand. So the bullseye target was pretty easy to hit. I think I was shooting a bit low in places, but other than that, it worked pretty well. Then with the MOA, grouping targets, it was not impossible to see those little the little tiny squares 100 yards distant, but the front side blade just completely covered that up. The front side blade also covers up the bullseye target as well, but it was much more pronounced on those little MOA things. Like, I kind of had to guess where it was and kind of just put the front sight blade on like one half of the target. As you can see, I was still able to get some pretty good hits even then. I think with a little more practice, I can definitely tighten up the groups somewhat. But remember, this is a battle rifle, not a target rifle. But then again, hitting a target at 100 yards isn't an easy prospect, even with a target rifle, depending on your overall skill level. Long-range shots are not something I'm really used to making, just because it's very difficult for me to go out to the 100-yard range, because that is, a multi-hour journey just to get there and back. Much less actually shooting, and then you've got weather issues and stuff like that. But really, this is an easy rifle to get into. These sights are just really, really well made. And overall, it was a very fun range trip. Now, also, I had absolutely no malfunctions at all this range trip. So there wasn't a repeat of that one jam that I had in the first shots video. I'm not sure if that was the clip or if that was the round. Whatever the case may be, all the clips and all the rounds worked in this range trip. One thing to also point out is the trigger on the M1 Garand is absolutely excellent. You can get trigger jobs and things like that done on them, but I don't really see the point. The trigger on here is not as good as, say, an AK trigger or an AR trigger, but it's not that far off. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the M1 Garand yet again. It is a rifle that has more than earned its reputation. And so I'm GeneralLotz, wishing you good M1 Garand, whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.